Welcome to the Crypto and Blockchain Talk.
Hello.
Hey.
Guten Tag.
Aloha.
Hola. Shalom.
Hello.
Namaste.
Ni hao.
Privet.
Hello.
Salut. Yassas.
Salve.
Ciao.
Bonjour. Our podcast talks about the latest trends in the worlds of cryptocurrencies and the blockchain.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this year's edition of Crypto and Blockchain Talk. Yes, it's 2022. I know, I can't believe it either. Where's it all going? Well, I can tell you right now, if you're into crypto, it's the same old ride. And before we go any further, I have to tell you, I have a very interesting gentleman on today's podcast. His name is Josh Neuroth, and Josh is from ANKR. So before we go any further, hello, Josh.
Hello, and thank you for having me.
I want to welcome you to Crypto and Blockchain Talk for your crypto and blockchain knowledge. This is going to be fun.
Yes, I'm excited for today.
Well, you know, you've joined us on a day where Bitcoin is right now at around 41. It's at around 41,000 US dollars. And, you know, all the other cryptocurrencies as well, of course, reflect the position that Bitcoin is in. Of course, Bitcoin's latest high was just above 69,000 really not that long ago. And all of a sudden now we are seeing Bitcoin really taking a hit. And there's a lot of reasons why that could obviously be. We know that the U.S. government right now is really looking at a number of things to do with stablecoins in the United States. They're looking at Tether and Circle, and they're looking at a number of stablecoins and really asking for some information from them, which we're going to get to in a moment. But there are a number of reasons why Bitcoin right now is having a hard time. So I was just wondering, do you want to start with one of the reasons, which could be that the United States is planning to reduce its balance sheet by selling off bonds? And this move by them selling off bonds saw a record selling on Wednesday and Thursday. And on Wednesday, it was circulated that the U.S. Federal Reserve had resolved to cut its hold on bonds after its meeting in December. And December was also, by the way, the same time that the U.S. Senate sent a letter to the stablecoins asking them to answer a whole host of questions, which, like I said, we're going to get into Tether in just a moment and all the other stablecoins that are out there in the market. But the government purchases bonds, as we know, to keep interest low, but its projected plan triggered this increase in bond yields. So this has led to one of the reasons that's speculated why Bitcoin holders have just lost $50 billion. So do you want to start maybe with this and wax lyrical on what's going on in this space that would make Bitcoin take a significant hit?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first of all, I think we've seen this kind of January slide in some sense for the last couple of years. It's a new year that we just went through kind of a pump. We hit $3 trillion of total market cap about 2 months ago. And I think it's just a natural volatility. I mean, you have several things happening at the same time. You have the Omicron variant in the pandemic. You have U.S. government saying that inflation is likely to continue. You have, news of pending regulation, like you were saying, and agencies in the U.S. and other world governments looking at regulating crypto. But I think also what's happening here, specifically with Bitcoin, is the market's trying to figure out how to value itself specifically because, Ethereum has been gaining quite a lot against Bitcoin. It's about 50% right now of Bitcoin's total market cap. And I think there's a lot of, some people are starting to talk about the potential of Ethereum being equal to Bitcoin or at least approaching it this year. So I think that's kind of interesting around that. There's a lot of FUD around that, but Ethereum is essentially has become this cultural movement, and that's really interesting. So I think all these things will, shake out. I don't see this this latest slide is lasting very long, I think, the market will ultimately keep going up.
Well, that's interesting, actually, because didn't Vitalik just also make an announcement about the fee structure of Ethereum? He just recently presented a suggestion, and I think it was on Twitter, as well as a number of other places. He likes to use Twitter, as we all know. He called this new fee structure multi-dimensional EIP 1559, which it's a mouthful, isn't it? I remember when we were talking about ERC 721s and you name it. We've had to memorize all these different acronyms, but we've got a new one, the multi-dimensional EIP 1559. It sounds like something you could strap onto your car and go to the moon, which is apparently going to allow users to spend less on various types of operations like minting and transactions and call data, which of course is very useful for people like myself because as we all know by my episode, I was screwed on OpenSea. I ended up paying a huge amount in transaction fees by going on to an auction, and I ended up spending more on the transaction fees than I did the actual object itself because of the way that the auction structure was set up without, by the way, even telling anyone in the auction how the structure was set up. But that's a different thing. Buterin did say that there's two ways of realizing his new idea with this EIP. And he basically said that the gas execution cost can remain fixed, and the operating costs will depend on the type of resource use and the base fee. So this update is going to apparently give like another layer of protection to the network. And he's hoping a more adequate fee structure. So, yeah, I mean, will it ever really overtake Bitcoin or equal to Bitcoin? I mean, that remains really to be seen. I don't know. I kind of have my own opinion on that. I think that the coin that will one day stomp Bitcoin maybe a little down is not even here yet. But what's your opinion on that?
Ethereum is starting to burn Ethereum, and so it's become it's basically becoming a deflationary asset. And so I think, given that and also its utility, there's definitely room for the Ethereum ecosystem to grow. And, specifically on Ethereum, even yes, gas fees are very high right now. Transactions are very slow. And Ethereum 2 and the future roadmap Ethereum should help address these. But I think, your roll-ups, your side chains, some of the layer 2 solutions that are building on top of Ethereum are starting to kind of fix those issues. For example, I just bought an NFT on OpenSea on the Polygon network. They support Polygon, right? And then the fees were much lower, but I ultimately paid for that in Ethereum. And, that's part of the Ethereum chain, even though the transaction was completed through Polygon. So I think there's solutions already in place for Ethereum to kind of really take off and maybe approach Bitcoin. Well, we won't say flip this year, but maybe to approach its market cap. There's a couple of things that has to happen. The fees have to go down. There has to be a lot more, projects building on it, and institutional investors are going to have to become very excited about that deflationary aspect of it. So I think all of those things, ultimately, very simply, Bitcoin's very much like gold. There's, the reality is, even though that there's some great development on the Lightning Network, that Ethereum just has a much bigger development community, a lot more utility for where it can go. So, I'm not a chain maximalist. I think everything's, all of these, it doesn't really matter, if one is one and the other one's two. But ultimately, I definitely see the market kind of going up, and this recent slide is just temporary.
But what about what's happening in Kazakhstan? Because, this is the second largest hub in the world for Bitcoin mining. And as we know, that there's right now huge turmoil and political upheaval in that country, to the point that actually Russian troops are on the ground now there, to try and, act as peacemakers and quell what's going on there. Now, the thing is that it's really made an impact because they really have, it's really impacted, many people think, what's going to happen in the world, in the crypto world, I should be more specific. And perhaps it will even impact what's going on in the greater sense of the world. Who knows? But we're only talking about the crypto world here. In terms of the fact that, this has it's definitely raised concerns about Bitcoin's capacity, the network capacity of Bitcoin. And, this is the thing. When you do hit, especially if it's like the second largest mining operation in the world, when you're hitting, something so vastly important, it's literally the heart of the decentralized network. Do people have the right, do you think, to feel scared about Bitcoin and in its essence, the health and operation of the network?
Yeah, so in relation to the mining, yes, if Bitcoin hash rate goes down, right, it ultimately does affect it, but the miners, the mining operations are very, very portable now. And especially the sense that a lot of miners recently were relocated to Kazakhstan from China back in May of 2021. China started pushing a lot of the miners out of China. I think pretty much all of the miners. And so we've seen some miners that have gone to Kazakhstan then relocate to the United States, and then a lot of the miners from China ultimately relocate to the United States. And so, what happened is, if you look back at 2021, in May, that ban in China started taking effect. The miners basically took about 3 months to put the mining rigs on the container ships. They were transported to the United States, and then back, by late August, September, the hash rate started improving as those miners started coming back online. So I think, similar situation here. This, again, is a temporary thing. The miners will do whatever it takes. So if Kazakhstan's not working out for them, they will ultimately just move to another country. There's a lot of options. I see some miners are moving to South America right now as well. So, ultimately not too worried about it.
Well, let's just hope that they get a really, really big cargo ship. You're going to need it for the second largest mining operation in the world.
Yep.
One thing I will say, and I meant to actually also reflect upon this when you were talking about Ethereum and how it's on its rise. And I love this guy's name, Nicholas Panagiotsoglu. He's, I said that with a Russian accent. I better say it again with a Greek one. Nicholas Panagiotsoglu. I don't know. Maybe it didn't sound better the second time I said it. Who the hell knows? But he's an analyst at JP Morgan, right? And I've quoted him before. When he's probably listening, if he does listen to these podcasts, he's probably laughing his ass off that I can't say his name. But, he really believes that Ethereum is going to continue losing its dominance in the DeFi sector. And according to him, he said since the sharding phase of the Ethereum network will be launched only in 2023, by that time it's going to be too late for them to catch up with the rest of the market. And he really believes that Ethereum's competitors are going to basically bash him into the ground like, what's that game you play again at the carnival? Smash the moles, or what is it again? Hit the gopher on the head. So, and this is what he sees. Nicholas sees that Ethereum dominance is going to go out the window. So just what do you think about that?
I think this mentality, again, that there's like one chain that dominates everything is actually flawed, because there's room for a lot of different chains. I often use this analogy. It's very similar to programming languages. 10, 15 years ago, the development community was using PHP. Now people are using like Go and Rust and some of these languages that really didn't exist 15 years ago, but people still use PHP, not as much, but it's kind of similar to that. I think we're walking into a multi-chain world. The Ethereum community is very, very strong. And one thing that Ethereum has done well is they've preserved kind of the community aspect, the decentralization of the network. And some of these rivals do not have anywhere close to the amount of decentralization or the amount of nodes that are really running on the Ethereum network. And so the thing about DeFi is that it's getting easier and easier to move assets like across chain. And so, maybe in the short term, we will see a lot of these chains gain prominence and, the assets grow in those chains. But in the future, it might be very easy to move them back to Ethereum. So I don't really think that there's this view that, Ethereum's going to die or all these other, chains are going to go away. Ultimately, the thing about, the different chains, like I'll give you a couple examples here. Like Ethereum at the moment, because of the high gas fee, is basically kind of like the Suits network. It's used by people that have income where paying $100 or $150 for an NFT minting fee isn't a big deal. But, there's other chains like Binance Smart Chain that are just dominating in Southeast Asia and some of the developing countries. They're dominating in the gaming sector. And, you're getting that adoption in those markets. And then you have, chains like Phantom, which is on the rise, that has a very strong development community as well. And Terra has recently been climbing as well. So I think all these chains are really building a community. They're generating wealth, they're generating capital, and that's great for the whole ecosystem. So I don't think Ethereum's gonna, lose out. I think, it doesn't have to be kind of like this zero-sum game where one wins at the expense of else. They can all grow at the same time.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that sentiment. And I do love these projects that are out there that also do operate this multi-chain intertwined kind of capability. I love that. But you also, I do also think that you can't have so many player. Look, I can't even, no matter what you read, there's always a different number. Oh, there's 20,000 cryptocurrencies now. No, there's not. There's 40,000 cryptocurrencies now. There's obviously ones that are on CoinMarketCap. Then you have these like lesser coins that are on these not, that haven't made it onto CoinMarketCap yet, but yet they're still alive and kicking on God only knows what exchange around the world. So, but someone's got to come out as like almost a de facto the de factos cryptocurrencies, because you have to have obviously these ones that are in high demand, obviously leading to more stable trades. Again, we'll go into stable coins in just a minute. I'm getting there. It's really quite interesting because of the fact that, the Federal Reserve that we said at the beginning of the podcast is suggesting, they've suggested that they're going to raise interest rates. Whether that happens or not, it's interesting, which of course leads to people selling off their assets. It obviously makes me wonder what Michael Saylor is going to do. That's going to be interesting because, of course, people are sheep in this space, and they'll obviously, they'll fall off the side of a cliff if it meant the first sheep went off. Crypto is very different, I feel, to many of the other kinds of currencies or asset classes that are out there, in that so many people are still very unsure of how this whole ecosystem operates, that they are literally just looking for, like I said, the master sheep, in some cases, to say something or make a move, and then they follow. It's like a copy trade. Would you agree with that?
There's definitely a lot of people that are, looking for whatever. There's a lot of people that look for fast money, right? I think from my perspective, when the market kind of has these dips, the retail investors kind of stop buying, but a lot of the projects in this space are buying up assets right now. And that's something that we've seen, a lot of these projects have cash flow now, and they have real businesses. They're not just like speculative projects, and they're invested. They're building their treasury diversity and investing in some of their partners and whatnot. And so, that is going to help stabilize the market, I think, as some of the whales, some of the bigger projects are investing when there's these dips.
So it kind of gave me a little bit of a laugh when I read that the National Unity Government of Myanmar, which is basically the government, which is it's their effective government in exile, who are supporting the ousted leader Aung San Suu Kyi. I don't know if you know, there's a whole thing that's been going on in Myanmar for forever, but they have declared Tether their official currency. They're using it to fundraise right now. They're doing, I just think, I don't even know why I'm laughing. I don't know if it's because it's a surreal moment, but they're kind of like doing a GoFundMe to topple the country's military dictatorship. Okay, think about that. Okay, they're doing a GoFundMe, and sorry, I I shouldn't be laughing. Think about this, what I'm saying for a minute. They are literally doing a GoFundMe to topple a government. Okay. I don't know how do you say this with a straight face? It's so ridiculous, and they're using Tether. Now, let's just talk about Tether for a minute, because I had to use that as the segue because I just find it so incredible. So as we know, it was, I think about a month ago, if not a month and a half, the U.S. Senate Banking Committee Chairman, whose name is Sherrod Brown, sent a letter. He sent a letter not just to Tether. He sent it to all the stablecoin companies, all their CEOs. And he basically wanted some answers. He wanted answers about what they were being backed by. He wanted to know all kinds of questions, and he wanted them answered ASAP. There's a lot of reasons that they should be concerned. Obviously, they don't want something going head-to-head with the U.S. government. Of course, our listeners know all these debates because we document them on podcasts. And, because stable coins, especially like Tether, they normally, they just claim outright to be backed by some kind of asset that is supposed to be in a 1-to-1 ratio. So in the case of Tether, as we all know, they said we are backed in a 1-to-1 ratio, $1 for every Tether. And as you probably know, there's a lot of people out there. There's a whole Twitter feeds. There's whole Twitter universes out there, Twitterverses that are out there who are basically every day saying, Tether is definitely pulling the wool over everyone's eyes. They basically hit 127 billion, which is up 500% from 2020 in terms of the market value of the stable coins that they produced. Yeah. So, in 1 year, they've been printing like no one's business. And of course, Tether were also fined by the CFTC, who I had on this podcast. I had Commissioner Dawn Stump on this podcast, and we talked about Tether paying their $41 million fine after the company misled customers and they claimed their tokens were backed by the sufficient dollar reserves. And as you know, or maybe you don't know, just recently, another lawsuit was actually filed against Tether by two gentlemen in the Southern District of New York, basically saying that they weren't happy with what the company was stating was backing their stablecoin, because they said that they, meaning these two gentlemen, Matthew Anderson and Sean Dolifka, these two gentlemen who basically said that they invested into Tether because they believed that it was backed 1-to-1. They believed what was being said to them. Yes. And so they have a class action because many other people have joined their lawsuit. And of course, Tether responded saying this is nonsense. It's a copycat lawsuit. At which I don't understand how they can also claim that it's meritless because they paid a fine to the CFTC for exactly that. But, just recently, and we're talking days ago, I think, they did do another financial disclosure. Tether actually came out with a financial disclosure, and it really didn't shed any more light on where their reserves are held. Yeah. And so I guess my question to you, because it's really also quite interesting where you have, on one hand, this shadow government who is declaring the USDT Tether as a dollar proxy for their transactions, even though they're the acting government, which is that they're fighting against, is totally against it. And then you have the United States, who is looking at stablecoins, and not only does it appear that the U.S. government isn't very pro stablecoin at the moment there are pretty good reasons, but do you think that when companies such as Tether come out and make claims and it turns out those claims aren't true, do you think it does do any damage to the cryptosphere as a whole? Or is it just people kind of shrug it off and they'll still go into it because they will see other people or other groups such as shadow governments who are saying we are using this as our de facto currency, or even obviously major whales out there who are buying USDT like there's no tomorrow, even though Tether prints this stuff like it's monopoly money? Do you think that it really matters to the end user?
Yeah, in regards to Tether specifically, well, I think the thing is like there's a lot of noise around it being backed by actual dollars. But if you think about it, like US dollars are no longer, since the 70s, are not backed by gold, right? And so it's like the U.S. dollar can maintain its value based on perception for the most part. I would even argue that the U.S. dollar is even maintained first by its reputation, by the institutions, and third by the U.S. military. And so it's not backed by gold. And so this notion that every dollar has to be backed by every Tether dollar, I guess, has to be backed by a U.S. dollar is kind of interesting. I ultimately don't think it matters. That's just my personal opinion. But, at the end of the day, like people it's ultimately like the exchanges. Like if you're trying to convert Tether into, U.S. dollars, the exchanges are the ones going to do that, then going to their, treasury or whatever, and then they're going to wire out actual U.S. dollars to people. So unless everyone does like a bank run and tries to withdraw all their assets at the same time, I think it's fine. It's actually more of a centralized exchange problem than a Tether problem. Basically, a lot of these crypto companies are going to take those lawsuits. They're very small in comparison to the amount of money they're making, the resources that they have. And so I think as an industry, we should be supporting the entire industry as they kind of fight the way through this, because ultimately as we get cases determined and regulatory decisions made, it will provide clarity to the space, and that should help innovation really thrive, right? So I don't think it matters at the end of the day, but that's just my personal opinion.
And we love your personal opinion, hence why you're on here. So then you come to ANKR. This is your baby. This is your company. So you feed it 3 times a day at least. So
way more than that.
Like good 12, to know.
12 to 20 times a day.
That is good. So it's more like Little Shop of Horrors plant than Fluffy Kitty. You guys are an Ethereum-based token, the token itself I'm talking about, and we'll talk about you're also, you do a lot of, you guys are cross-chain compatible.
Yes, we are. So a bit about ANKR is we are effectively kind of the foundation of the multi-chain movement. We've integrated over 50 different chains, and then ultimately have kind of 2 main product lines. We have a build product line for developers. We have APIs that connect to nodes, so projects build on our infrastructure. And then we have a staking platform where effectively we run validators and users do what's called non-custodial staking with us, meaning we don't take possession of their crypto. They just delegate it to us. So for lack of a better term, we're a bit like kind of the next generation of cloud infrastructure. I don't really like using the word cloud because it's not really a representation of what we're doing, but we're effectively building the infrastructure that powers, the Web3, DeFi, metaverse space.
That's pretty cool. Now I'm going to give you 1,000 ANKR if you can name all 50 chains in 20 seconds that you integrate. Can you take the challenge?
I'll tell you what. No, I can give you the top 15. Some of the chains are rather small and they're kind of emerging right now. But I will say with the amount of chains that we've integrated, that it has been almost all of them have done quite well. And so it's really fascinating to me when, just think about this, when the chains integrate with ANKR, they're making investment in their infrastructure, right? We help them with their developer tools, and sometimes they're staking infrastructure, and that ultimately is beneficial for the chain themselves, for the community. And so, we launched with Phantom, about 7 or 8 months ago, and immediately after, saw their, Phantom's chain rose 10x from 27 cents per token or coin to over $2 now. And that's obviously not because of ANKR, but I think what it says is there's a correlation there between, infrastructure being available to projects and how those projects are valued in the market. And we've seen that over and over and over with projects. We did something with Akala, 18 months ago or so, and they've been quite successful in the parachain community with Polkadot and Kusama. I could give you many stories around that, but it's really interesting. It really speaks to that, how important infrastructure is in the space.
Well, I have to tell you, you made me laugh because you're like, I'm not saying it's because they joined our project that they went 10x, but I'm saying it's because they joined our project that they went 10x.
Well, I don't want, they're doing so many other things too, so many awesome projects. But see, it's the developers it's the actual, because think about this, like, here's kind of how it works is Phantom comes to the Phantom Foundation. We work with them to launch developer tools.
Right.
And then independent developers begin building projects on that infrastructure. And so it's the infrastructure is the enabling force. It's the actual developers. Like, for example, Spirit Swap, Spooky Swap. Spooky Swap is killing it right now. Phantom blockchain, I think they've just gone into the top 100 on CoinMarketCap. They're a huge ANKR infrastructure user. Having reliable infrastructure helps them. It's just a piece of the puzzle, but it is definitely, that key foundational aspect. And then they're the ones doing the work to help the Phantom ecosystem rise.
What exactly are people using the ANKR infrastructure for? What are people building on it?
Specifically our ANKR protocol, which we announced about 3 months ago, is a way, it's effectively a decentralized API that allows projects to connect and talk to the underlying blockchains. And so, we see NFT marketplaces, decentralized exchanges, wallet applications, metaverse games. They're all using that API to connect and talk to the blockchain. So I think, one thing for, I guess, someone new to the space is to realize is the blockchain is made up of these independent nodes. Nodes are just applications that live on a server somewhere. And, ANKR is making it really easy to build high performance, highly reliable infrastructure on top of those nodes.
Yeah, I think our regular listeners, I think they have had a ton of blockchain instruction. So it's a good time to maybe say to people, if you can't remember how the blockchain works, please refer to the episodes such as What is the Blockchain? And please listen to that so that you can understand exactly what blockchain is and what the end goals could be in terms of its usage. So where is ANKR going?
Yes, great question.
Isn't it?
Integrate. It is going, I think things are going quite well, actually, and our future is really going to be in supporting this multi-chain movement. So one of the kind of issues, and we talked a bit about this earlier, one of the core issues in the space right now is that every blockchain network is effectively siloed. It's completely separate. So, what that means for that user is like, let's say we talked a little bit about stable coins. Let's say you have a stable coin on the Ethereum network, but you want to buy an NFT on Phantom. You can't just transfer that stable coin over from Ethereum to Phantom. That is, if you just sent it across the network, it would be lost forever. And so there needs to be kind of a middleware solution. We've seen the emergence of bridges. Some of the foundations have created bridges. Some are reliable, others are not. But what ANKR is trying to do is make that those multi-chain use cases, the multi-chain development very, very easy. So that can look like everything from moving assets with code from one network to another, and also, developing on multiple chains at once. We see increasingly our kind of core business that we win is these multi-chain projects that they are, are DeFi aggregators or decentralized exchanges that are using, 6 to 8, maybe even 10 plus different chains. So that's going to be our future, and I think it's very promising.
If I read it correctly, you also have some founders are your founders all former Amazon engineers? Is that correct?
Our three founders, Stanley Wu, Ryan Feng, and Chandler Song, they did all have a background at Amazon. Stanley in particular, who's our CTO, worked there for 12 years. I think he started there around 2008, was early engineering leader on AWS, and then most recently led the Alexa search project as the most senior leader. And so, they did meet there. And Yeah, I've had a cool story. They're all of them are Bay Area based now. So
So how did they grab you? Where'd you come from?
I was most recently at an infrastructure as a service company called Xterra Technologies, which just went public this about 6 months ago on the NASDAQ. And my background has been I spent 7 years working really in the I guess traditional internet infrastructure. Met the team, about it's almost been 3 years ago now at this point, and really hit it off with the team. ANKR was very early days at that point, and I just started getting involved in the project. And it's definitely grown. Our founders have worked really, really hard. Scaling the team from that point when it was about 10 people to now over 100. So it's been a great ride but what's been interesting, I think, is that ANKR was talking about Web3 infrastructure like even 2 years ago. And this whole notion of like, what is Web3? I think there's been a cultural awakening to the Web3 movement, specifically in the last several months. And before that, it was really just like those early adopters and the technologists talking about it. So kind of helps validate our thesis. And then this last year, just seeing our traffic has increased by more than 15x on our products. And so that's been great to see that as well.
You have this amazing infrastructure, right? And you are allowing basically DeFi to become easier, according to what you're really saying. So you're really trying to support more DeFi projects than anything else. Is that the case?
Yes, we continually see us leading kind of the infrastructure for the DeFi space. And there's many, many reasons for that, but absolutely, like especially the decentralized exchanges are increasingly using ANKR.
That is interesting. Because if you guys are processing over 1 billion in crypto transactions every month, you have to have a really good base.
Yeah.
Are you guys going to be doing any kind of raises in the next couple of months? I mean, are you still looking for investors, key investors? Are you going to be coming up with some kind of offering for the users of your platform? What's going on in terms of getting even more usage or investment into ANKR?
Yeah, we're exploring some opportunities with NFTs right now for our community. I can't say too much more around the capital side.
Oh, yes, you can. I won't tell anyone.
But, ANKR's in a very healthy place from a financial perspective. So we were almost 4 years old at this point. I heard someone the other day tell me we were an OG project, and I guess in crypto, time passes really fast, so we technically are. But I think we have a solid foundation, solid cash flow on our products, and we'll continue that growth.
Yeah, I have something to tell you. Everybody who's been in crypto up until this point is an OG. So I mean, yeah. Well, there you have it. Well, look, I think that it's been. You guys have an amazing platform. You obviously have an amazing project filled with amazing people. I mean, between you and me, I hope you don't hire any more than 100 people, because otherwise you're going to find yourself probably chasing people more than product. All I know is that you guys look like you're definitely on the way to every single tick in the success box. So really, on that note, I just want to say thanks, Josh, for coming on and waxing lyrical with me and telling us about ANKR and putting the world to rights.
Thank you so much. I want to say one other thing. Infrastructure companies, are not always as sexy as these projects that just kind of come out and everyone's excited about. They're a little bit more like snowball effects. And we've seen this with everything in Web 2, from like Amazon Web Services to companies like Twilio, where infrastructure companies, they build a user base, they keep expanding kind of those core services. And I think what's interesting is if you look at like not only ANKR, but other tokens like some of the storage tokens like Aweigh or Engine or whatever, these infrastructure tokens, often when the market dips, our tokens actually start rising because people see our tokens effectively as like almost like a fundamental. And so I think that's one thing is exciting. We definitely see a lot of growth, but it's a project that takes much longer to manifest than just like something that comes on the scene and maybe gets all these assets transferred into it and everyone's excited about it. So we have a big, exciting roadmap for 2022. And, I just want to say thank you for having us on the show.
Oh, you're so welcome. No, seriously, you guys are you're just the sweetest person. I mean, again, thank you so much for coming on to Crypto and Blockchain Talk. We love having people like you on who you have your finger on the pulse. Absolutely. You know what's going out there and you know what's going on inside your own house, which is absolutely fabulous. Well, on that note, I'd like to thank everyone for tuning into this week's Crypto and Blockchain Talk. Please remember to tell your friends and family about our wonderful podcast. And if you want to know which platforms are supporting Crypto and Blockchain Talk, please go to cryptoandblockchaintalk.com, because we have over 70 different podcasting platforms now that stream our beautiful podcast. And that does not include all the radio stations that pick us up. Of course, the main being our sister radio station, crypto24radio.com. That's crypto24radio.com, playing all these beautiful podcasts as well as music, news, and all kinds of goodies. And some commercials, actually, we've just started to put on there so that all of you listeners, which I think number about 100,000 a month now, listen to and enjoy. We do love to hear from you. So if you would like to communicate with us, it's very easy. Just go on to one of our social media platforms of Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram, and you can write us a happy message. Or our favorite way of communicating with you, as you all know, is through email. So please email us at education@savvydigital. That's education@savvydigital.com, SAVII digital.com. Again, thank you for tuning in. We know that your time is valuable, and we know you have so much to do in your busy day. So when you tune into us, we really, truly appreciate it. So please, be safe, take care, and goodbye for now.